Good morning. My name's Lucy Elliott, and I'm here to talk to you about a research project that I carried out at my school, the International Community School of Addis Ababa, for the University of the People for my master's research about embedding global citizenship and critical thinking into curriculum. So today I'm just going to talk to you about who I am, why I chose this area, and then the research project. How did I go about it? What were the outcomes? And then what might my next steps be? So my name's Lucy, as you gathered. I'm PYP coordinator, IBEN, and a concept-based curriculum and instruction teacher trainer. And I work at the International Community School of Addis. Here you can see me in some traditional, what we call Habesha dress, at home, getting ready to go out to a local event. In Addis, it's 2017 because we have a different calendar here, and it is a wonderful country to learn all sorts of information and for me to become a better global citizen as I work here. You have a picture of me and my son here, who is now 25, but he grew up as a third culture kid, so to speak, mostly in Uganda, some in the UAE, and his middle name is Ziad because he started life in Lebanon. And then here is something showing my commitment to the community engagement and global citizenship, as we have got an NGO fair next week at school. So I will talk to you about that. So why critical global citizenship? The first thing we did at ICS was we have a strategic committee and we looked at our definition of global citizenship. We wanted to make it work from the inside out. So starting with who we are, and we have an ICS way. So first of all, we care for ourselves, each other, and this place. And we wanted our definition of global citizenship to reflect that inside to outside look. So we came up with the definition that at ICS, global citizens are committed to understanding themselves, each other, Africa, and their world. They're responsible for engaging with local and global communities and learning from their perspectives. Global citizens choose to act individually and collaboratively with empathy, self-awareness, and integrity. Global citizens reflect on the impact of their thoughts and actions to inform their daily habits, behaviours, and values on a small and large scale. We will be a community that nurtures change seekers dedicated to learning from each other and acting together to make a just, peaceful and sustainable world. And as you can see at the end, we have a very aspirational statement. So in developing this, we decided that we wanted our approach to global citizenship at this school to be through a critical lens. We didn't want to just adopt the Sustainable Development Goals and think that that might fix the problems of the world. So this is a quote from Vanessa Andriotti, who is a researcher in this field. And you'll see on the last slide, I put a link to this article for you. So why critical global citizenship? Because we want to promote change without telling learners what they should think or do. We want to create spaces for them where they're safe to analyse and experiment with forms of seeing, thinking, being and relating to one another. We want them to look at the historical and cultural production of knowledge and power so that they can make better and informed choices. We want the choices of action and meaning to come from the students. We don't feel that it's up to us to impose our thinking on them. One of the questions we had about sustainable development goals in a country such as this, being based in Ethiopia, is how applicable and how realistic are they without looking at the structures and the systems that are in place, and how looking at the concepts of injustice and inequality and how we can help our students to understand why there is such poverty in this country before we can start to tackle the issues. So critical global citizenship is not telling children what to think or do. We're thinking about understanding how our history and culture works. Instead of poverty and helplessness, as I just said, we're looking at the concepts of inequality and justice. And instead of lack of development, we're looking at education, resources, skills, culture, and thinking about the structures and the systems, the power relations, and what is in place in a country that creates the situation that we find ourselves in, country, world, whatever. So why did I choose to do this research project? Well, this is something I'm very passionate and interested about. In the course of my international career, I have lived in Lebanon, I've lived in the UAE, I spent a long time in Uganda, I lived in China, and now I'm here in Ethiopia. And all of these countries have different issues and different systems, structures, etc., which sparked interest in me into how I could become a better citizen and learn from the places I was living in. I am a PYP coordinator, so the programme of inquiry is the focal place for me to try and develop this learning and understanding in our context. I'm a concept-based curriculum and instruction trainer, and I'm passionate about concept-based learning. And I think taking the ideas of global citizenship to big conceptual levels makes it attainable for students and gives them the opportunity to explore some of the bigger issues and transfer their thinking to different situations. As I said before, this is in line with our ICS strategic goals, and here you can see global citizenship and international is the first goal that we selected. And then I decided I wanted to try and test learning strategies so that I could share it with the teams I work with. Rather than just saying, I want you to do this, I wanted to bring them evidence about how I tried it and what worked. So how did I go about it? First of all, I started with a book club, which was across the whole school, all the way to high school, with this book, which you can see. I've shown you the pictures of how much I've used it, marked it, written in it, and I found this to be a really valuable tool for bringing in some very meaningful and concept-based learning engagements with the students. So we started with a book club, where we went through it chapter by chapter, and we met and discussed it with a group of teachers across the school who all had different interests and different perspectives. So that started the conversation really strong. I then looked at doing a curriculum audit, and you can see here the spreadsheet that I developed to put information in. And then once I'd collected all this information, I was able to analyse it and see where in curriculum we've got opportunities for action, disposition, development, and where the local and global issues are evident or there's room for more development. I then selected tools to use with students, and I taught small groups in grade 3, 4 and 5, groups of about 20 students each. So then with the students, I looked at how I was going to unpack the definition or the school's definition of global citizenship, and we used visible thinking routine chalk talk with them. So that's the visible thinking routine from Harvard. We used a routine called empathy mapping, which is a design thinking routine, and then we used the sustainability compass and iceberg, which are systems thinking. My key goal in this process was to have the students doing the thinking and the heavy lifting. So I planned the engagements, and you can see here that I did a baseline survey with the students where I had them initially share their understanding of certain issues with me at the beginning and then again at the end. As you can see, this research project didn't last for terribly long because I didn't have much time. However, that in the 3 weeks that it took me to do it, I still saw some results and differences with students. And the most satisfying thing is that I still have students coming that worked with me on this last year that come up and talk to me about it now. And teachers reporting that they're hearing students referring back to it in classroom situations. So first of all, I've got here the empathy map, which again I took from this book. I've put the page numbers of the book from where I found the different engagements. So this was having students really thinking about an issue. In grade 5, they were doing a unit about migration and they were thinking about challenges and opportunities. So we took the work from the class that they were doing. In grade 4, they were using their scientific knowledge to design theme parks. So we talked about accessibility of theme parks and they did their empathy mapping around that. So here you can see where they took the challenge and issue of challenges and opportunities of migration, and then they thought about what they thought about the issue, what did they feel about it, what would they want to be able to do as a result of studying this, and what would they want to be able to say as a result of it. We found this to be a very this thinking routine gave the students the opportunity to think very deeply and explain their thinking. We also could take these thinking routines back to the teacher or as a teacher, and then I could look and see what I thought the students' next steps might be, and I've already got some of their interests and where they want to take it next. So this is allowing for more agentic learning with the students. Here we have a sustainability compass, which is from Compass Education. They actually have a short course that you can take, which doesn't last very long, but it just teaches you about how to use the sustainability compass. And in the case of this one, you can see this was from a grade 4 unit where they were looking at their theme parks that they were designing. So the theme parks was part of a scientific NGSS unit of inquiry, but this was taking the themes broader and not just focusing in science, but adding a transdisciplinary element to it. So they were using systems thinking to think about how they might incorporate some of these elements into their designs. Unfortunately, because of the time constraints, I didn't get to see them enact some of this, but I know that grade 4 team have taken on using a sustainability compass with the students to explore different issues with them. And then this is a very powerful model, another systems thinking model called the iceberg, which we know when we talk about identity or emotions that sometimes we use these to see what's going along below the surface. But this in terms of an issue, so you can see these are 2 examples where the grade 5 students took it and thought about migration, and you can see the questions that they were coming up with as they were doing it. And then they started thinking about things that we know about. So what do we know about? We know that people move because of war, because of natural disasters. But then we start looking at the patterns of behaviour and what's been happening and why those situations are happening. And then we start looking at the structures of systems. So what's influenced the pattern? What are the policies, the laws? And this is where we talked about at the beginning of this presentation, approaching global citizenship with an element of criticality so that we can really start looking deeper into not just how can I fix poverty, but why is poverty here in the first place? So we're looking at the systems and the structure of the systems and what's influenced, and then the assumptions, beliefs and values that people hold about those systems that might make it harder for us to enforce change, might make it easier if we understand, but it's also a really important routine in perspective taking and really thinking deeply about why these things are happening in the world. And it is clearly a really relevant tool to be using with students at the moment, particularly those faced with war and conflict in the Middle East. I see questions about immigration happening in the UK, and I would really like to be able to take this thinking routine not only to some of the students, but some of the politicians to really have a good look in depth and see what are the systems and structures and what's happening in the world to create these situations. So, from the baseline survey, again, I will say that this only took 3 weeks, but you can see a little bit here that from global citizen is someone who understands global affairs, identifies. This is somebody who's informed and is starting to think in other perspectives. You can learn to respect people's decisions, and this is about giving respect and knowing how you want to be treated. Do you think it helps us to be best with Africa in the world? Yes, because you can listen to opinions and perspectives. So even in the 3 weeks that we took this research project with and use these tools with, we could see a difference in children's thinking. So what's next? Our plan is to go forward and carry on. What were the outcomes? Had this session been live, I was going to ask you to do a Mentimeter at the beginning and produce a word cloud sharing your thinking about global citizenship and then add to it again at the end. However, that didn't happen, but these are some of the things that the key words and concepts that the students came up with towards the end of the 3 week intervention. And these were concepts that the students said were key to global citizenship that we should be looking at with them and that should form part of their learning in our elementary school. So to finish my presentation, what are my next steps? I've done a lot of reflecting on next steps in this context. I actually, as I was putting this together, was thinking that maybe I could use the iceberg model with our Global Citizenship Strategic Committee to look at, to analyse where we are in our process of implementing global citizenship and really truly embedding it into the curriculum. And maybe this is something that we could look at together as a team to help us design our next steps. And we have a meeting in a couple of days, so I'm going to test it out there. There is a lot of learning to be done, and obviously a lot of learning to be done from my community and global communities, so that I've given you some ways to get in touch with me and share your thinking and any ideas or input, or if you want to continue this conversation, or if you wanted me to come and do some of these things at your school, that would be amazing. We have, as well as part of global citizenship, last year in grade 3, our students wanted to inquire into local and global organisations, and particularly looking at sustainable organisations where people learn how to help themselves, and we are not coming in as the richer people in the school with the privilege, etc. But we're going to work with partners, we're going to learn from them, we're going to learn with them, and we can help to support their endeavours to make their worlds a better place. So to that end, last year we invited about 12 organisations to come into school for the grade 3 students to meet them. And then I thought, well, grade 4 should meet them too, and grade 5. And then it extended to middle school. This year, we've called this process metababer, which in Amharic means cooperation, and we are looking at how we can bring in organisations and really truly form partnerships and community engagement with them. So we're no longer calling it service learning, we're calling it community engagement, because we want the relationship with our partners to be reciprocal and our students to learn both ways round. We have a fair this coming Wednesday, and this year we've got 18 exhibitors, I believe, it might be more, and it's going to happen for the whole day, and it's going to be for the whole school this year, including the high school, and we are also inviting parents to come and participate. So our work around global citizenship is increasing, it is getting to be more dynamic, it's involving more of our community, and I'm excited to see what our next steps could be and where we might take it. So I've put a couple of references on the bottom of the presentation for you. And like I say, if you want to get in touch with me and continue this conversation in any way, I would be really excited to hear from you and to hear what other people are doing, what other schools are doing. If you try any of these tools, how did they work? If you go to the Compass education and use the Sustainability Compass, there's a whole online community you can connect with about that. And I'm excited to see what's next. I want to go back to just quickly the last thing that our aspirational statement is that we as a community here at ICS, but generally this is very important for me in the whole world, and I'm sure it's important for you, but we want to nurture change seekers. We want students, we want people, communities that are dedicated to learning from each other, acting together, and we are looking for a just, peaceful and sustainable world for our future. So thank you very much for listening.